Hi everybody, you're all very welcome to a new episode of Revenue Hacks with me, Khristina Quigley. We've got a great show ahead of you, but first we have a huge announcement for Revenue Hacks. We have just hired a huge partnership with the next video. So we're going to share with you our great news today, which we've been dying and sitting on hold for this now. Yes, we have tied a partnership with STR. We are thrilled and delighted. So thank you to everyone in STR. It's been a huge work in progress and we can't wait to kickstart this. Next week is our first show with STR, so we're really looking forward to it. So let's crack on with Revenue Hacks today. We have a great show. We're getting recruitment ready for hospitality because hospitality is reopening. It is returning. Oh my God, Calvin went and put a hat on since we last had this conversation in the green room. I love it. And he's got his kombucha. So Bianca, if you're looking, your man has come back to LA with full swing. So first of all, I'd like to welcome absolutely everyone today to Getting Recruitment Ready for Hospitality. As I said, we've got a great show ahead of us today. Thank you so much, Maria, for being in the background. You can't see her, but this girl is amazing. She's always working really hard. So we're going to around the room, just have a quick introduction. So we do have two new hosts, one new, one old, with us today. So Calvin.
Hello, everyone. Calvin Tilokee, Revpar Media, digital storytelling. You may know me as Ref Problems on Instagram. And of course, I am now in LA and it's really early. So if there are any flubs, it's a good reason to tune into the show now because I'm half asleep.
Thibault.
Hi, my name is Thibault. I'm the founder of Catala Consulting, a revenue management company, outsourced revenue management company based in London, and we're looking after several hotels in Europe. Yeah, definitely looking forward to a discussion around the recruitment and CVs and everything.
Margaret, you're very welcome. This is your first time on the show.
Thanks a million, Khristina. I'm Margaret Byrnes. I own Ready Recruitment, and we specialise in hospitality recruitment here in Ireland.
And last but not least, regular host, Raise Up member now, part of the UK and I team. I love the way he's doing these jazz hands, Tom.
So yes, thank you very much for having me back. It's always awesome to be on the show. So massive thank you to the whole team. My name is Thomas Finn. I'm the managing director of Edwards and Finn, which is a specialist revenue management and commercial analytics recruitment firm. I'm also the host of ENF TV, which is a online sort of show that airs every Tuesday all around the world of commercial within the hospitality industry. So every Tuesday at 11 o'clock, we always air an episode. I also host a number of rooms on Clubhouse. And finally, I also lecture at a number of different universities on revenue management as a career path and also sort of career development as well. So that's me.
I love the way you've put in absolutely everything you do.
Hell yeah.
Quick too. He did that quick.
They watch Game of Thrones, right? It's the introduction of Khristina. He goes, Mother of Dragons, just goes through everything.
Daenerys Stormborn. I'm actually rewatching the whole of Game of Thrones. I'm on season 2 again. So let's crack into today because, again, the hospitality industry is reopening. We need to get people ready for recruitment, ready to rock within the industry. So let's kick off this straight away. How can someone be ready for recruitment right now? Margaret.
Well, I think two things. One, get your CV ready, and two, have a LinkedIn profile that matches your CV. And if we talk about your LinkedIn profile, I think it's really important. A lot of people maybe are not working at the moment or they want to change jobs. And I'm seeing people with unemployed or looking for a job, but I'm wondering, why aren't they putting in there the role that they'd really like to have? It makes it easier for prospective employers or recruiters to find them on LinkedIn. And I think get somebody that you know and trust to read through your profile. I think more here in Ireland and the UK, we tend to be a bit modest with our CVs or resumes and our LinkedIn profile. This is your opportunity to brag about what you've achieved in your job or jobs. This is your opportunity to talk a little bit about where you've gone to college, what you've achieved, and stuff outside of work as well. So don't be afraid to go for it. I don't know if you want me to continue, but what I would say is keep it short, keep it simple, and don't go for loads of graphics and all that kind of stuff, because it messes up your opportunity often, because we use a lot of software. And if you're going for a design job or a marketing job, maybe you want to show all those skills, but it's not really necessary. Do it on a PDF or a Word document and keep it simple, and probably max 2 pages. And one thing that I've noticed an awful lot over the last couple of weeks, people are forgetting to put their email address or their phone number on the CV. So it might sound really simple, but get somebody else to read through it a few times. And if you're kind of 24 or 5 and you've got a 5-page CV, you need to rethink it. If you're 45 and you've got a 5-page CV, you need to rethink it as well. But keeping it very simple, use bullet points, proofread it, and use keywords, because there a lot of the bigger companies will have software that will look for the keywords that's in the job description. If they're not showing up, you're not getting in front of a human. As terrible as that might sound, that's just the reality of the world we live in today. So look at the CV, and then look at the job description and tailor the CV to the job every single time. And it might be a pain in the neck to have to do that, but that's what's going to get you noticed. So reflect what they're looking for, reflect the key phrases that they have in the job description, and pop it into the CV. I think that's covered kind of 2 minutes of everything.
I think we can all go home today. That's it. We can close the show.
I was going to say that. What do you say after that?
I'm coming to you because you know what?
I hope you guys know. She gave you everything in a 1 minute. Sorry.
Well, that's revenue hacks for this week, guys.
I know. So Margaret did mention a CV should be 2 pages. Tom, talk to me about a cover letter, because a while ago, Tom and I had a conversation about my CV and a cover letter. Oh my gosh, last year, even way before the pandemic. And you've seen mine and you rewrote mine. So Tom, talk to us about a cover letter. How important is it? And also, how short should it be, or how long should it be? Because mine was almost like War and Peace.
Well, I think what we need to be is very much aware of the times and aware of the market we're sitting in. So if we put this into perspective of the recruiter or the hiring manager or HR person within the business, they're going to have 300-400 applications. Okay. And if they're going to have a load of CVs that they've got to go through before a certain time because they need to shortlist, there's a whole process that needs to go on before you really get to that shortlisting of the actual candidates you're going to interview. Now, part of that process is, of course, reading through CVs. Now, who in their right mind is going to go through 200-300 CVs and cover letters? They're not. At the end of the day right now, they're going to skip straight to the CV, and you'll have some people call it profile, some people call it career objective or personal profile, whatever you want to call it. It's usually 5-6 lines long, okay? Not much more than that. And what that basically is your opportunity to say exactly what you want to say in your cover letter, but in a much more clear, concise, and punchy manner. That's what you need right now, because anybody that is recruiting, they're going to get through your profile. They're going to look at your first job. They'll get to your probably second job, and they'll already have made a decision whether they think you're going to be right or not. They're more than likely, and this is just the truth of the matter, especially in a market like this, they're not going to get to your next page. If you're not engaging with them, if your CV is not punchy enough and grabs them by the ears and tells them to listen, you'll get put into the maybe pile. And we all know the maybe pile might end up turning into the no pile if there's enough yeses in that pile. So with regards to that cover letter, in my opinion, and what I always say to people is create a really great personal profile at the top of your CV. And when you're attaching that to an email, write a really great little note in the body of the email to go with that CV. That cover letter is just not necessary anymore. And it's something that it almost becomes a bit of a waste of time from your side, because honestly, 9 times out of 10 right now, they're just not going to get looked at unless they are specifically asked for. There's a big difference there. If somebody specifically asks that we need to have a cover letter with each application, then of course, write one that's bespoke to that job. Otherwise, I would say a really great note in the body of an email and a really good profile at the top of your CV should do it.
You're on mute, Khristina.
She's still on mute, I think.
This is our miming section of the show.
There we go. So anyways, Erica, you can see, is very much into social media. And I'm coming with this, obviously, hat on, because obviously this kind of feels like a TikTok or a Instagram question. But, do you prefer a cover letter, or are we going into a video intro now, or are we doing both?
Yeah, we've seen a massive increase in terms of tech for recruitment with regards to these video introductions. And they've really sort of done a great job in terms of getting these introductions, because they are something different. They are an innovation. And one of the biggest things, as you know, Khristina, is what I go on about, is bringing that human element back to your recruitment process. Because in my opinion, and this has been something I've said on a number of occasions, the apply now button on these job boards is probably the best, but also the worst thing that has ever happened to the recruitment industry. Because what people are now doing, and they've done this for years, is they quantify their success of their job search with how many jobs they've pressed apply now to. They're not quantifying it with how many people they've spoken to, how many people they've called. And these introductions are a really good option for somebody to really make an impact, where a lot of other people might not, because it can still feel a bit alien, or they feel a bit awkward about it. But honestly, that tech is there to be used, and it is working. So yeah, for sure.
I will add two things on this one. First of all, on LinkedIn, I see a lot of people when they see a job offer on LinkedIn, they say like, I'm interested, review my profile on comment.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do that. Please apply, contact the person, do the full recruitment process. Don't just put interested. I think there is no sense. And the second one, I like the application when there's a bit of part of personalization, not too much, because when I see someone with a pen card saying like, okay, Thibault, I love you, I'm fit for working at consulting, that's a bit too much of personalization. But like an email saying like, oh, I've read your article about personalized pricing. I find it great because ABC. By the way, I'm looking for a job, blah, blah. That kind of personalization, I think it makes a lot of difference.
Yeah. One thing I'll kind of piggyback on what was said earlier, especially by Margaret, was when you are presenting your resume, or especially in an interview, remember it's I, not we. And that's a mistake I've made a lot, because I'm a team player. I've always looked at what I do in revenue as part of a team, right? Because we all rely on every other department. But when you're in the interview, when you're putting together your resume, it's about you and your accomplishments. You're trying to get the job, not your team. It's been said to make sure that your resume is customized for each individual role you're looking for. I can't stress that enough. You want to be able to speak to the skills you bring to that specific role. I mean, if these roles are different, and you may be looking for, something that's multiple properties, as opposed to one hotel, then you want to highlight the skills and the things that you've done that will show that you'll be able to do that, different brands, different markets. And if you're someone who's been in the business for a while, this obviously wouldn't apply to entry-level people, but the way to break through, all of this, these stacks and stacks of resumes, is use your network. If you've been in for a while, that's a great way to, kind of bypass that line, skip to the front of the line, or the queue, as you guys would say. See, I know a little bit.
I have a question, okay, because we are seeing the rise of social media, okay, and Tom, you are very much of a presence on Instagram in particular, especially with your job posts.
Sure.
Are we seeing Instagram now being one of the main pushes for people for applying to roles, or is it just an extra source for your roles to be shown?
Definitely an extra source for the roles to be shown. The great thing, I was thinking about this earlier, and I actually wrote somebody a message, because my community have shared every single job that I've put out during the pandemic. We've had 40, 50 shares at times where people have really pushed it out there. And the reason I've been using Instagram is because I've got some great professionals on there, and a lot of them may think this isn't for me. But you never know. There might just be that one person that will go, do you know what? That sounds really good for Linda, or that sounds really good for Chris. I'm going to send this to them. I'll take a screenshot. And it's those sorts of moments where it takes an extra 5-10 minutes from me to create a specific post for Instagram. But if that gets me that return, if that gets me that person into a job, 5-10 minutes well spent. So I think it's about utilizing what you've got and utilizing the audience that you've got, because as we all know, social media is about that audience and the reach that you can ultimately get. And yes, the reach on my LinkedIn page is a lot better than my Instagram page, but why not use it if you've got it available? So yeah, it's very much an added source rather than something that really does return on the invites and on the responses. Sorry.
Margaret, I have a question for you then in regards to, this little green banner that appeared last year, ready for hiring. Do you think that's worked in a positive way on LinkedIn for people, or do you think it's been just one of these little extra banners that LinkedIn has put in to, try to assist people with their hiring?
No, I think it's great. The one where you're open to work.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Because straight away, as a recruiter, you can see people that you might not have thought would even consider a move. So I think, absolutely. Yeah.
I think that's interesting because I just think I didn't know if it was going to be a huge thing because, again, that market was flooded, especially with our industry, everything was flooded. So it's really good to see that it has had some positive effects. Thibault, you're about to shake your head.
Yes, I was going to say I disagree, because I find like people who put looking for a job and so on are seen as a bit in distress or in need, while we don't want someone who is I don't know if it makes sense what I'm going to say, but when we look for a player, we look for someone whose previous company was reluctant or who didn't like him to leave the company. So in a way that I'm putting like I'm open for work, please help me, blah blah. I find a bit too pushy. So I will look for different ways to find it. Like for example, on LinkedIn, you have the ability to put I'm open for a new role in the back end, but not in the front end. Like a recruiter will see that you're open for a new role without putting it everywhere on LinkedIn. I don't know if it makes sense what I'm going to say, but
I know, I get what you're saying. So you're on by having it hidden. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can do that, can't you?
You can, yeah.
Yeah.
You can.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I think I had that done at one stage, and I think I spoke to Margaret about a job because I had it done. That could be years ago. But coming back to this whole hospitality and writing CVs and getting everything together, can we please have a conversation about top tips on writing a CV? I'm really interested to hear what Margaret has to say, what Tom has to say, Calvin and Thibault, because everyone here hires people and sees CVs on a regular basis. I'm the best salesperson when it comes to my CV. My cover letter has been like wicked. At one stage, Tom just looked at me and was like, seriously, are you putting all that in there? So,
I sound awful.
Well, I can tell you, my face just dropped, Thank God it was my phone and you didn't see me in person. Margaret, can you give me your top 5 tips or even 3 tips in writing a CV for people who are looking at this right now?
Keep it short. Be very specific. I think we covered a number of those points already, but be very specific about what you're looking for. Put in your keywords or your headline, as Tom was talking about, your profile, your contact details. I can't emphasize that enough. I don't see something in the water over the last few weeks, but we can't catch you on the phone and chat to you and set up a Zoom meeting or whatever. It's going to be very hard to find you a job. And answer your phone if you do have or answer your text. I think just so if I go down through it, be specific, tailor it to the job, use the keywords, very important, use the keywords. Don't make it too arty-farty. Don't make it all designed and page breaks and graphics and stuff like that. Do it in chronological order. So the job you're in now or your last job, put that on there and work backwards. We don't need to know what you got in your your leaving cert or your A levels back in 1994. Totally irrelevant. We don't even need to know that you've gone to college most of the time. Your work will speak for itself. Bullet point it and proofread it. But one other thing, to make you stand out at the moment, if somebody has taken the time, if an employer has taken the time you've got to cross the line, they've interviewed you, send them a thank you note or send them a thank you email. Very, very few people do that. And it mightn't even be for this job, but so many times we've suggested that to our candidates. And, 4 months, 6 months later, that client comes back. Do you remember Tom? He sent us a lovely thank you note. And we think we have a job for him right now. So I'd say that as well, that's really important. Make yourself stand out that way as well.
Margaret, you just mentioned a mobile number being important. And we actually have one of our regular viewers here who actually he's got a French mobile. He's living in the UK. Do you think having a localized number is the right way of going it? Do you think recruit or employers are reluctant to call an international number? Do you think because they're afraid that you're actually not based in that particular region that they're looking for a job?
It's not very difficult to get a local number if you need one. And especially, I don't think so now. And I mean, if you're putting in a little note that you're available anywhere. I mean, I've just been speaking to somebody who's been in the Caribbean, had a French number. They're actually now in Ireland, So, it really, I guess, I can't speak for employers, but yeah, look, if you can have a local number, obviously it's going to look better. But I think most of the time we just want the right candidate, and if they're in the UK or Ireland or the States, I mean, if somebody's determined to move, they can be here within 2 weeks anyway, COVID or whatever restrictions included, so I don't think it's that important.
Tom, your tips. Give me 3.
So 3 tips for the CV. I'd say first thing is key skills. So underneath your personal profile, where I generally put it, your key skills, what is really great about you, but make sure that that's followed through with the CV. So if you put something like attention to detail, for goodness sake, don't put spelling mistakes and God knows what else in your CV. But key skills are brilliant to have at the top of your CV because it immediately tells somebody in a really nice bullet pointed form what you're great at. As Margaret made a really good point about, is that a lot of people are very hard on themselves, or they find it very difficult to sell themselves. This is a really great opportunity to put that in key skills. So make sure they're on there. The thing that I find incredibly frustrating actually is what people will generally do, and this is not in all cases, but generally, in terms of their bullet points on their CV, they'll put down effectively the job spec, what they did, their duties, their responsibilities. That's all well and good. But what we want is achievements, what they've achieved within that job, what they've taken away from that, what quantifiable evidence of success have they had. These are all the things that an employer wants to see from somebody. Anybody can copy and paste from a job spec. That's not what we're there to see. Although we do need to see some duties, we also really do need to see some achievements. So that's really important. I'd say the other thing is, and it goes on to actually something that Margaret said at the very start. No waffle, no embellishments that don't need to be there. Your CV is very much an opportunity for you to put as much content across as possible in a really clear and concise manner. If that's got embellishments all over it in colors and all sorts of visuals, it does nothing but take away from the pure content of your CV, and therefore it will take away from your chance. So make sure that it's formatted in a really clear and concise way, but there's not loads of waffle, there's not loads of embellishment all over it, because all that will do is take away from you as a professional. Get the content across, and that will sell itself. Those are my 3.
Yeah, I got to stop going after Tom and Margaret because they're not leaving anything for me to talk about. But I'll just reinforce that. I think proofreading is so key because especially in revenue, right? Revenue is all about the details. I once had someone put their resume across saying that they were detail oriented, and detail was spelled DEETAIL. So I threw it out immediately. I'm not even going any further than that because clearly you're not. Right. And as Tom said, list your achievements. This is your time to brag. We all know what the job description is. We don't need you to list that out. If you tell me you're a reservations manager or front office supervisor, I generally speaking know what that is, but what did you achieve during while you did it? This is the time to talk about that. If you were somebody who has achieved the highest ADR at your hotel, or something like that, this is the time to say you need to be able to separate yourself from the other 1,000 resumes that are coming through. They want to see those things. And lastly, kind of going back to this, to the open to work part of the conversation we had about LinkedIn, if you're going to put something like that, it needs to flow through to the rest of your profile. You'd be surprised how many people are doing things like that, saying open to work, but your profile picture is not professional. Your banner is not even updated. Your resume, your LinkedIn resume is not there. You have to be, detail oriented. You have to follow that all the way through. That goes for your resume, for your LinkedIn. Don't cut corners. Every part of this is part of the process. So, back to the point where somebody said, hey, I'm looking for, if somebody makes a LinkedIn post that they're looking for a position and they say, please email me at, my email address. Don't go in the comments and put interested. They're immediate. I would never call that person, because you're not reading 3 sentences to follow the directions properly. Clearly, you're either not really interested in this job, or you're not somebody that's going to follow simple directions, right? So take every part of the process seriously. She's still miming.
Yeah, she's we are trying to read the lips.
So what can you add to this? Again, I've been typing away answering things.
Well, we're all going to add to our resume lip reading skills after this episode, because we are.
I mean, you guys are amazing at this. And Maria can add typing you're on mute about 10 times in a conversation.
No, I mean, not much to add after all of this. But for me, if you want to save us some time on the interview process, we are looking at understanding what are your career goals. So if you put a note on career goals, what you are looking for, the mid long term, what are your main goals? Because I believe it's very important to understand if it's aligned with the position, and as well what you are really good at professionally. So experience is great and is needed. Education is great as well, but I want to understand exactly what you are good at. If it's all your interest. If you are good with a BI tool, if you are great with Tableau or Power BI, I don't know, but what you are good at, and then we can see what would be the best position for your skills. But it goes as well with the question of Pablo regarding students. And I think what you are really good at, or what are your career goals, I think is very important to put on CV, even if you don't have any experience.
Thank you for beating me to reading out that question. So we did have a really good question from Pablo Torres. So Pablo, thank you for joining us. What about students straight out of university with any previous professional experience? What can they write on their CV? So as a recruiter, what would you, Tom, and Margaret both recommend to students who are watching this, hospitality students, or even just students in general, write on their CV right now?
Okay, so as you guys know, as I said before we actually went live, I work with students. I work with a lot of them, and I also obviously lecture them with regards to career development. And one of them is CV writing. From my perspective, and from what I've learned over the years in terms of getting students into jobs, what students can basically look to do is put down, again, if we start at the top, your profile, right? So your 3 to 4 lines of your personal profile. All that simply needs to be, if we're going to treat it as a formula, who you are, what you've done, and where you want to go. As Thibault said, what are your goals? That is exactly what you can get in that top profile. Who you are, what you've done, where you want to go. If you treat that as a formula, you can create a really great profile that's really clear and concise. With regards to your key skills, if we go on to the next bit, you can put in everything that you've got in terms of your placements, in terms of your work experience to date. Everything that you've done and everything that you've experienced, you put into those key skills. If we're going on to the actual work experience now, and I sorry if I'm going a bit quick for anybody that's trying to take a note, but in those sort of descriptions, if you like, put in your duties, 3, 4, 5, 6 duties, whatever it might be, but make sure you put in your achievements. Now, one of the biggest arguments I've had, not arguments, but concerns from students is, well, and again, they usually say Mr. Finn, but Mr. Finn, I haven't got any real life sort of achievements yet. I don't feel like I've achieved anything. It's so wrong. Just because it's not some sort of business change achievement where everybody has benefited from it, that does not mean to say it's not an achievement. It's just relative to your career at that stage. Anything that you've learned, you've taken away, you've made a guest feel better about themselves or their stay, or a certain process, put that in. Your achievements are everything, and that's what an employer is going to be looking for. Any student can put in, as I said before, a job description. What we want to know is what you've taken away from that job. Those are the main things I would say. In terms of students as well, the final one, depending on which institute they're coming out of, your email addresses, what you generally put on your CVs, are all with your university sort of formula on it. Your name at university.co.uk or .com. Make sure when you're stepping into a workplace environment, not an internship, but a workplace environment, that you change that to your own personal email that doesn't have anything weird or any strange email addresses, because I've seen a lot of them. Just make sure that it's a really sort of clean email address that you can put on to it. Differentiates you from being a student leaving university to now a young professional ready to step into a workplace. Those are the sort of main ones that I would say. But I do get this sort of question because I do get it a lot.
Margaret, do you have anything to echo on that?
For students, if they don't have huge amount of work experience, any voluntary work they've done, as in charity, anything like that, or maybe we have the Irish Hospitality Institute business game every year, and it's not the creme de la creme of the class that gets, that represents the college. You might have 4, 5, 6 students who do that. If you've been lucky enough to be picked to do that, pop that on there, because we know if you've done that, you're a key achiever in your college, and or any other thing that you've represented your college in. But you might have been involved in some key project work, or you might have headed up some big charity thing that the college were involved with. We're not expecting you to have pages of experience, but it just makes you stand out from somebody else.
We had a really good, interesting question again about personal interest, because I think this is very funny. And I think it's a great question to ask, because everyone during the pandemic has taken up some personal interests. Like I've taken up drinking gin again and running, but I don't want to put that up as disease, because and here's the thing, this brings us then to the next part as well, when it comes to actually how companies look at your social media. When you're putting down personal interest, should you put down professional things, or should you just put down personal things? Like I run to drink gin every weekend, or I'm now a seasoned baker at home. I aim to be on the Great British Bake Off, or Master Chef by the end of 2022. So what do you guys recommend when it comes to putting down personal interest?
I can tell you a small story on this one, and it goes back to the previous question as well on students. My very first job, I got it because I put on my CV that I was a black belt in judo. I'm black belt in judo, but it was a personal thing. But also showing some achievement and some experience in this one, even without any work experience. So I would say yes. I would say some anything personal. Which add value, of course, because if you put like your own, maybe not a professional card player or whatever, I will still put it. So yeah, I still find it relevant.
Yeah.
I
would definitely agree with
from
that.
your perspective.
So it's a funny one, because you sometimes get sort of hobbies and interests, and they'll say something like, I played rugby in school, and then somebody will immediately say, well, oh, do you still play now? No. Right. Okay, fine. So you've done something back in school, but it has absolutely no relevance to your life now. So I think your hobbies and interests, yeah, of course they can be personal. We want to see the personality behind, your job titles, because that's, at the end of the day, that's you as a person. And also, as Thibault quite rightly sort of pointed out, there may be some synergies with the people that you're interviewing with or whatever. They may pick up on that and say, do you know what, that's really interesting. The really key one is, Thibault, you said something really interesting where you alluded to the fact that there was commitment in there. You had to go every week. You had to put that work in. You had to be part of something bigger than what you were, just yourself. And that sort of thing, it's with regards to I think volunteering. That was a really good one. Or being part of, if you talk about boating or sailing, you're then part of a very close-knit team, which takes practice, it takes time, and it takes teamwork. And it's stuff like that where you can really translate that into a workplace environment. Cooking, for example, as Khristina knows, I'm massive on cooking as well. If I was writing, if I was writing a CV, I would definitely put that on there because it's a huge part of my life. But it doesn't always need to be focused around that professional environment. It just needs to be relevant to who you are as a person, as a human being, and that's really what you want to go for. Really, that's my take anyway.
What's your take on it when it comes to professional and personal interests?
Sorry, me.
Yeah, that's you, Margaret.
Yes.
I would agree with Thibault and Tom, and I suppose it struck me when you said you'd taken up drinking gin and running. Are you doing them at the same time, or are you?
Well, you can do. My aim is to do the marathon in France. There's a few of us that are going to do a marathon in France through the vineyards. That's going to be an interesting one.
It has to be wine then. You can't do that in France. They're going to kick you out. Right. That's not right.
Wine and champagne. It's the only way.
She's going to finish the marathon with very red teeth and lips.
You'd be lucky if you find me after 21. Will you stop? You'll find me somewhere thinking I'm drinking, having some grapes. So it's great. But yeah, no. What would you recommend, Margaret? Because obviously you can't put down, through that. That's what you do for fun anymore.
Well, I think people want to know that you have a life outside of work as well. And certainly if you're involved in anything, team or charity or anything like that, get it down there, because it's not, you're interested in more than just yourself, and if you're on a rugby team or you're playing Gaelic football or whatever it happens to be, or you're involved, like I know I did karate many years ago very badly, and I can't remember, I got about 3 belts, I think, and I just thought, well, this is not for me. So I have huge respect for you, Thibault, to get a black belt, my God. And so the discipline, I know that's involved, that would strike me, somebody has done something like that. And I think you mentioned, Tom, about, being part of the sailing team. Like if one person gets it wrong, it affects everybody. So, those kind of things may not seem huge to you as the person going for the job, but if the recruiter is clued in or the manager is clued in, they go, this person is good at teamwork, or this person's really resilient, or they're a bit of crack, whatever it is they're into, So I think it tells a little bit about your personality. But I've seen people write down, reading. I love reading. And I asked them the last book they read, and they're looking at you going, if you're putting something down, make sure it's something you can chat about, and I think sometimes I would look at that, and it kind of leads in. It's a kind of a nice icebreaker for the interview. And if somebody is able to talk about their karate or their rugby or whatever it is for a second or two, but it breaks the ice and it relaxes them because they're really confident about what they're talking about. So yeah, I think it's important to get it.
Yeah, it's also how you can start to see the real person. If it's something you're truly excited about and you just start speaking naturally about it, people will start to pick up on your excitement. And to the points that have been made on the panel already, if you're in a team sport or something like what Thibault did with martial arts, it shows a high level of commitment. And any good recruiter, any good interviewers should be able to pick up on that. I mean, I don't got a black belt. You know what I mean? Like that's a lot of work, and that takes a lot of mental strength. So anybody who's worth their salt in interviewing should be able to notice that and say that, hey, you know what, this person is committed and driven.
Let's talk social media, guys, because here's a question for you as recruiters. Do you snoop on people's social media to gain a better understanding? Tom, I know your answer right away. But Margaret, do you snoop on people's social media to actually, understand if their CV matches who they are? Because let's be honest, we can lie on paper. We can say X, Y, and Z. And I can say I bake and I cook and I run. And then on the other side of things, when you go onto my social media, you'll just see all I do is sit around in my pajamas drinking gin all day.
Well, you did say both. I mean...
Yeah,
I know, but
it's hard to take pictures while you're running.
I don't sit in my PJs, right? I'm a little bit classier than that. But Margaret,
Just a little bit.
I haven't snooped on your
Block you right away.
I think be careful what you post on your social media, and if you're clever, you will have something that just your friends will see, and then if you want to have another one that your granny and your mother and your whatever will see. But I would be careful enough what I post up there. I have looked back sometimes at tweets and stuff like that, and especially if you're representing I'm talking about now more senior people, but if you've got strong political views, I would have some sort of an alter ego. I'd have a different account, because I am very aware of somebody not getting a job recently because they were tweeting at a political organization. And we all have private lives, and we have stuff that we feel very strongly about, but it shouldn't be, that organization, if they ring up your employer and say, this person's tweeting at me, or they're saying whatever, I'd be really, really careful. I am aware of a senior person not getting a job recently because of a tweet. So I would be careful, and I'd be careful photographs and stuff that I'm posting, or live streams that I've seen people posting when we could go out for a night. You remember those days? Okay, you guys are doing it in the UK. We're nearly there. But, putting out stuff, and it's great fun when you're doing it and you're not really thinking too much about it. But who's seen that the next day where you're legless and you're singing down Grafton Street or whatever at 3 o'clock in the morning? So I would just say be careful. But at the same time, you're a human being. You have to have a life as well.
Yeah. This is something that I've spoken about on a number of occasions. It's not about censorship. It's not about you being somebody that you're not. There's no sort of win there, but you do have to be conscious about your audience at times, especially in this sort of workplace environment now where social media is king. It drives so much more your activity and your online presence than it ever has before. And the natural thing for anybody to do is to jump on your LinkedIn, is to jump on your Instagram, is to jump on your Facebook. It's almost second nature now. Okay, well, I know the professional or the person that they're saying they are. I'm going to now look to see what their personal life is if I can. So it's just about being conscious of that fact. And as Margaret so rightly said, political views, if you have very strong views about certain things that are going on in the world and so on, just be conscious about the people that are actually going to be looking at that, and other entities out in your workplace environments that could also not just have an opinion, but also make judgment, because that's what we are based on now. Human beings judge. It's just is. So yeah, I'd agree with Margaret, but I'd also add that fact as well.
Yeah, that's the perfect word for it. That's the perfect word for it. Is your judgment. The same way we just discussed about talking about your personal interests on a CV or resume or an interview can show different things. If on your social media you're posting things that don't align with the company culture, that will show a lack of judgment. I'll tell a super quick story. Some of you guys may or may not know. Paul Pierce, who was a basketball player, NBA player, won NBA titles. He got a job with ESPN after his career ended as an analyst. He recently did a live stream on Instagram where he had exotic dancers, and marijuana was very prevalent at this party. 2 days later, he got fired from ESPN. ESPN is owned by Disney, right? I don't think Mickey Mouse would have approved of the behavior that was displayed here. You know what I mean? You have to know. And this guy's a multimillionaire. And I spoke about this on my channel, and the responses were scary because a lot of, I would say 90% of the people are saying, oh, well, if he's not at work, then he can do whatever he wants. I can't stress enough how wrong that is. That is the completely wrong mindset, because you know what? If your boss can see that, you're reflecting the company you work for. Whether you like it or not, it's just a fact of the matter, right? That's not something. Yeah, and that's not to say you can't do those things, off the clock, but don't put them on social media. Keep that to yourself. Not everything needs to go out there. And you're talking to somebody who has 5 different brands, right? I don't put everything I do out there. You know what I mean? So you have to be careful. I can't stress enough that will come back and it lives forever. Okay. It was a live stream that people recorded, and it was all over Twitter. And that's why he ended up losing the job.
Okay, so we've got literally 3 minutes left because we're already slightly over time, but I do want to crack on with this one quickly. Interviews, do's and don'ts. We are in a virtual world right now. What is acceptable? What is not acceptable in the interview world while you are being recruited and you're appearing on camera in front of people? Margaret, ladies first.
Oh, thanks so much. Be on time. Look like you mean business, at least on top. If you're wearing your on the bottom, well, so be it.
If you're in your PJs like Khristina.
I'm not, I swear, make jeans.
Make sure you only wear the pants.
And as best as you can, have somewhere that's bright so that you can be seen. Preferably don't just sit on your couch where you're slouched, sit in a chair. Check all your equipment is working properly and that your laptop or whatever you're using has battery life, all the little things. I'm sure Tom will have 100 more. But yeah.
Yeah, no, sorry. I thought, have you done? Or yeah, okay, cool. So yeah, I think the fundamental thing is treat them like you would an interview. Do not see them as anything different. Treat them with the same importance and respect as they should be treated. Yes, I completely agree with Margaret. Make sure that you're in a well-lit room. Make sure, for God's sake, that you have your camera turned on. If you do not have your camera turned on, it is an immediate question mark and a serious concern for a lot of employers. Not because they just want to see who you are, but the fact is you're in a meeting, so turn your camera on. There's a couple of occasions that this has sort of happened, and I'm very hot on that. I think timing, yeah, you still sign on maybe 5 minutes early, make sure your equipment is right, make sure everything is set up correctly. The other thing I'd say to you as well is sound. Make sure that you've got a good pair of headphones or you've got a microphone or something there that you're going to be able to make sure that you sound good, you sound right. And signal, for goodness sake, make sure you got some good signal, because if you've got a situation where suddenly or the signal suddenly cuts out and then you've got to re-sign in and all this sort of, it can really take away from the flow, and you might be having a really great conversation and all of a sudden everything freezes and then you've got to restart your laptop or whatever it is. So just treat it like an interview and treat it with the same care and respect. You wouldn't go into an interview with, let's say your half your buttons on your shirt from the, your chest down open because you forgot, or you wouldn't come in with a jacket that's got a ripped lapel, whatever. Just, it might be a different situation, but just treat it with the same respect. Yeah, that's what I would say with regards to video interviews. They're not massively scary. Just treat them as you would in a meeting, like anything else.
Yeah. What I will just kind of, just super quick, just to kind of piggyback on that. Remember, it's about you. It's about when you step in there, how you're going to feel and present yourself. It's not really about the interviewer doing all of that stuff for them. And the one tip I like to add to this is keep some notes on your laptop, right? Like keep it right here on the keyboard, so you can just look down and know the points you want to make, bullet points, and probably don't wear a hat. This is just for fun.
Yeah, I know. I think you're going to start supporting the Raiders soon, and if you don't go see that stadium, I'm going to be devastated. Okay, we have one quick question before we go. Eva had asked actually a really good question, and this is actually from someone who was a serial job hopper years ago, because in order to get to the top, I had to move. How does it seem when a candidate hasn't had so many jobs within a short period of time? Do they seem less reliable? Is that still the mindset now, that people are less reliable because they've job hopped a lot over the last while?
I think Margaret, it really depends. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go for it.
I think it really depends on the situation, and how long you've been there, and can you explain it? I think the most important thing is, can you explain why you moved? I'm a person that I was at a hotel a year and a half, 2 years tops once my career really started going. Luckily, I was fortunate enough that I was with the same company, right? But a lot of people do that with different companies, and as long as they're progressive movements, as long as you're showing that you're moving up to different things, and you can explain why you left. You left for a bigger role, a different challenge, a different brand, or whatever it is. Be able to explain it. If somebody sees a bunch of lateral moves every year and a half, every year, that's going to be, that doesn't look good. But I think as long as there's a progression, then it's fine. I would prefer that. If I was looking, I don't want to see somebody who's been in a role for 6-7 years.
Yeah,
I would have thought that longevity would have been a little bit better. And I'm a serial job hopper. Well, I was.
I think it depends. It depends on the level we're at here. So I guess I would need to know more, a little bit more context. But if you're somebody who is more in the entry level to middle, if you're a VP, SVP, and I'd probably want to see you in that role 5-6 years, right? Because you're more responsible for corporate culture and building. You don't want to see somebody leaving that after a year. You probably haven't accomplished much of what you're supposed to do. But if you're, reservations manager to analyst to director of revenue, even regional, you kind of want to see this person moving every year and a half to 2 years, or if you're regional, that portfolio expanding over time, or you've gotten different regions. I would want to see that.
Yeah. The only thing I'd say, because I know we're running out of time, is the context behind the move, and if, as Calvin said, the explanation behind that. There's a culture right now, or there has been a culture over the last few years, where if you want a real pay rise, you move. Staying within a company, you get maybe 1-2%. As soon as you leave, you're then looking at 3, 4, 5, 6,000 pounds of an increase in terms of salary. The only time you're going to get that is if you move, and that culture has been cultivated by the industry. And if they don't want that, then we need to make a change. But I think basically there needs to be a context behind that move and a solid explanation as to why that happened. Those are the two main things for me.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Well, we've actually run out of time. We're well over today, but I think it's a conversation that we could have had for a very, very long time. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. It's been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Margaret, for dialing in, and Tom. It's amazing to have someone else in Dublin on the call. It was great. Sorry, Sandra, if you're watching, but Margaret's a lot better. Don't say that. Sandra's going to kill me after this. Calvin, thank you so much for joining in from LA, because you did join when it was about 3 a.m. kickstart. So look at you and your kombucha can go to bed. I love the way I feel like you're advertising.
It's not good. Just so you know, it's not good.
See, I never really thought it was. No, thank you. And
I've got some in the fridge. I'm the same. Yeah.
Seriously, you guys are bandwagon jumpers. Just be unique. Be yourselves. We've had some really good comments from everyone saying how great the episode was. And again, feel free to reach out to the recruiters directly. I'm sure they're more than happy to give you advice and help you as well. Revenue Hacks will be back next week, but also Raise Up does have a new recruitment platform that we're after launching this week. Tom is on it. We've got a few different jobs up there. So if recruiters want to join, we actually have a 30-day free trial for the recruiters. It's a global thing, so it's not just for the UK and I, and also the regions that we are in. I'd like to, again, say thanks to everybody for watching today, and we will see you guys next week to kickstart our STR partnership.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.